We pirates sail out of all manner of diverse ports, but there be three things that bind us all: a thirst for grog, a lust for gold, and the need for the open horizon. For gold and grog, we differ little from any landlubber brigand. It is the need to have the wind at our back and the salt spraying in our face that makes us pirates. But how came it to be so? That is a tale known by few, but story carried by all of us, what these so-called modern men of science term the DNA, which, as I can reckon it, stands for the dead now answer. This talisman was given me by a voodoo priestess from the Isle of Barbados. A horrible, hideous woman with dots tattooed all over her face and her teeth sharpened to razor-sharp fangs. I paid a wild price that night to obtain this from her, the scars of which I still bear, though I dare not show you where. With this talisman, each of you shall be able to call forth upon your pirate ancestors, ask of them a question, and receive the answer. Thus can we piece together all the story of how pirates first came to be. Will you help me? Aye! Aye! The first pirate was born in a small fishing village near the sea. By the age of 7, his father had died of the pox, and his mother had run off with a man of some profession. Tell me, what was the profession of this man?
A whore.
The man was a whore, and he so loved the mother so fully that she gave up her 2 children and ran away with him. The boy did the best he could, trying to provide for his little sister himself, begged, borrowing, and stealing. But most nights, when they went down to the beach and crawled underneath an upturned fishing boats, the sound of the waves could barely muffle the gurgling of their hungry stomachs. One day, a mighty gale blew as they slept. The village elders said it was the worst storm that ever had or ever would blow, and it was caused by a fight between the god of the sea and the god of the sky. One of the gusts picked up the boat that the children slept under and hurled it clear across the village. The boy grabbed his sister's hand and drug her up the beach, but a wave crashed over them, breaking their grip and dragging her out to sea, never to be seen again. For the next several years, the boy shambled through life, barely aware of the people around him. The village elders set him to task with the only thing possible. He was too afraid to go fish because he was terrified of the water. So they let him tend the one land animal, the only other source of income this village had. It was an animal, what was this animal?
Tree frog.
Yes! This village was world famous for breeding fighting tree frogs. Ox carts and camel trains and dog sleds would come from every corner of the earth to purchase these fabulous tree frogs. The boy's job, of course, was to clean all the shit out of their cage so that they wouldn't soil the glossy, wonderful skins. After a decade of hard work shoveling tree frog feces, the boy grew up. And then the worst thing to befall the village yet happened. They woke up one morning to find all the fishing lines cut, all the nets torn asunder, all the crab and lobster traps smashed into a million pieces. What evil could this portend?
Christian.
The village elders sent for the soothsayer who lived in the cave in the mountains above their village. She hobbled down, and thus was the sooth she spake. The sea god's monster, now unleashed, will claim all life beyond his reef, unless down deep one goes to meet the wrathful sea god and his queen, to bargain for life, and for this life be freed. As payment, the village elders gave her 3 of their famous fighting tree frogs, which she petted and cooed at as she shambled her palsied way back up to her mountain cave. The village elders put their heads together to decide what this prophecy could mean. Very quickly they realized it clearly called for a human sacrifice. And so they called upon the boy, not only because he had no one left in the world to love and care for him, but because the village elders were completely disgusted by the ever-present rank of tree frog feces that clung to his very skin. When the village elders explained what they wanted from the boy, he refused at first. Not so much because he cared about his own life, but because he was too afraid of the water to go near it. The village elders told him this could go down one of 2 ways. First, he could find his manhood and his dignity and strut forward and sacrifice himself nobly for his fellow men. Or they could torture him, and they threatened him with the most horrible, the most vile torture. What was it they threatened him with?
Ping pong balls.
Yes! Oh, the horror! The horror! To be hog-tied and filled with his mouth and anus with ping pong balls and left in the shallows until the sharks and the eels and the crabs came and nibbled away his toes and his cockles. This horrifying threat, of course, very much worked on the boy, and he acquiesced to the village elder's demand. He asked for a moment, though, to go and prepare himself, which they granted. So he went to the village workshop, and rumbling through all the things, he found the one item that he thought would help him if he had to fight the sea monster. What was this one magnificent tool that he found?
Hot plug.
Holographic Charizard.
I said Dildo first.
Yes! For some reason, the master craftsman had left his favorite dildo amongst his things. And as all good men know, sea monsters are terrified of dildos. So, equipped with mighty fake cock, the young lad went back to the beach. As soon as his toes hit the sand, he rushed into the water and started shouting his war cry and dancing and splashing. The village elders were very impressed by his seemingly insane bravado, when in actuality, he was just trying to splash up as much water as possible to hide the fact he had soiled himself as soon as he saw the ocean waves. Well, him ready, the village elders brought him 2 gifts. The first, a fine damask coat, so that he may appear worthily before the sea gods. Additionally, such a heavy fabric would hold water very well and drag him very quickly to his sacrificial death. Secondly, the villagers realized that this poor soul was not really much of an offering to the sea god, so they brought one of their famous fighting tree frogs to sweeten the deal. Holding the tree frog in hand and standing in the prow of his boat with a dildo in the other, they pushed him out to sea, where he drifted until dusk. Finally, the waves went calm. Not a gull cried, not a breeze stirred, and then a shadow under the water came under the boat. He leaned over trying to track it. It turned and started charging at him. It started rippling, and then white water formed, and then he jumped up out of the water, and he prepared his dildo. Show me how he held his dildo. Yes, he held it straight up in the air, making himself an easy target for the sea monster to wrap around his arm and face and fling him back into the water. Plunging down, faster and faster, it wrapped its tentacles over his face. He couldn't breathe. He felt his lung expanding and burning, trying to find his breath. And just as he thought he would pass out and die, his back slammed into something hard. The tentacles slithered off of his face, and he found that he could magically breathe. He looked up at a coral throne. Upon it sat a fabulous mermaid, and attached to her hand, hanging off of it, was the sea god, his tail wrapped around her fingers, his dorsal fin vibrating with majesty. The young lad looked upon the sea god. The sea god gazed upon the young man. They stared at each other for a very awkwardly long, silent time, until the boy, in his absolute stupidity, finally mumbled, "You're much smaller than I thought you would be. I mean, even fully unraveled, you barely be the size of..." "Silence, foul-smelling primate! This is not my true form. You could not comprehend my real sublimity. This is merely the form I take to please my queen. Now, let's get on with the sacrificing, shall we?" He snapped his tail to his minions, alerting his sea monster to prepare. It unfurled its tentacles. It snapped its razor-sharp claws. And then the mermaid said, "Wait, spare him, please." "Why should I?" The boy looked at her, past the scaly tail, past the barnacles, and past the seaweed, and into her eyes. And he thought, "Oh, it can't be. But that voice." "Because," she said, "he is my brother." The sea god pondered this. Then he motioned for his minions, and something huge and hulking started to come out from the deep. The boy thought it was surely going to be the sea god's kraken to come and devour him. Instead, a monster even more hideous, even more horrible appeared out of the water. What was the name of this monster?
Blastoise.
Blastoise.
Yes! It was the terrified Blastoise fish!
Pokemon?
As you can see, I've enjoyed my queen immensely since I made a few modifications. I desire a whole harem full of hybrids. Therefore, if you can implant your seed in my Blastoise fish, I will not only spare your life, but I will grant you a mighty gift.
The blood drained from the young man's face. He had never been with a human female. He never even had a midnight romp, rubbing himself off of one of these famous tree frogs, as so many of the young men or old poxy men had done. Please, his sister begged, gazing into his eyes fondly. Do it. Do it for me. Well, the lad saddled up to the Blastoise fish.
The turtle.
It turned its belly up to him. And when he entered, it gripped his hips and started wriggling him to and fro, throwing him into the water and back into the magical air bubble, splurging, splashing, splooging, splicing, until finally he felt something building up inside him like it was going to erupt. What would it erupt like?
Rhubarb
Donald
cobbler.
Trump in a...
Yes! He erupted like rhubarb cobbler, nearly blasting one of the digital flumes off. When he finally recovered himself, the sea god applauded.
Impressive. Most impressive. Where you are from, you must be a mighty specimen.
He then signaled again for his minions, and another, even larger Hulk started coming up out of the deep. And the young lad thought, God, now he is going to sacrifice me to his kraken. I've done what he bid. He will not keep his word, but instead, a mighty galleon burst through with its prow, bold and proud. The sea god blew off all the barnacles with a magical breath and started raising it towards the surface. A vortex carried the lad onto its deck, and he got one last glimpse of his sister before he broke the surface. A good breeze filled the sail and blew him forth to the new horizon. And from that day forth, he knew the invigoration of salt in his face. He knew the freedom of the open horizon, and he knew the love of many human females. For what lady could resist the captain of the magical ship, that mythical galleon, it's one of those ship names that starts with
USS
Zuzu.
Incest.
Flying Dutchman.
The flying, I forgot the fucking name of what you shouted out earlier. What was it? The fucking, what's the name of the monster?
Blastoise.
The flying Blastoise fish.
It's a turtle! It's a reptile!
It's a turtle.
You're not know who Blastoise is. He's like number 3.